Hey guys, this is your host Eric. Today we are going to watch action genre movie called Old Henry. Spoilers ahead. Turn on your subtitle. I greatly appreciate your support. Enjoy the video. Ahead in Oklahoma in 1906, Brannigan is fleeing from three men wearing sheriff's badges. Dugan Stillwell and their leader apprehend him. Brannigan is still shot and bleeding no matter how fast he runs. Catch kicks him a few times and asks for the location of another man they've been chasing. But because Brannigan refuses to confess, catch him by tying him to a horse and dragging him through the ground until he finally speaks. The man they are looking for has fled to the east. Then, instead of releasing him, Brannigan is killed. Meanwhile, old Henry McCarty and his adolescent son Wyatt are hard at work on there. Henry grew up in New York and traveled extensively before settling down as an Oklahoma farmer. Unfortunately, he lost his wife to tuberculosis, but her brother Al visits frequently to lend a hand and be an uncle to Wyatt. Their lives are peaceful and enjoyable. The only point of contention is Wyatt's desire to travel and learn to shoot a gun, which Henry refuses to allow. It's still early in the morning when they notice a horse passing by with a bloodied saddle and no rider, while Wyatt transports the terrified animal to the farm. Henry rides his own horse to investigate the area. Eventually, they come across an unconscious man on the ground. Curry is his name, and he was shot in the shoulder. As a result, Henry covers the wound with mud and a handkerchief. He then discovers a gun and a satchel full of. That tells him there's trouble brewing that he doesn't want to be a part of. He only takes a few steps away before he feels sorry for the man. So he returns, picks up everything, and after getting rid of any evidence of their presence, he takes Curry back to the farm with him. They put Curry on a bed and tend to his wound with the help of Wyatt. After dark, Henry takes the gun and the satchel containing the money and hides them in a secret compartment in his closet, unaware that Wyatt is watching him through the space beneath the door. The next morning, Henry decides that the wound won't heal unless the bullet is removed, so he goes to town to find a doctor, but not before tying Curry to the bed and leaving the knife he used to cut the rope on the night table. Wyatt goes to Henry's closet after his father has left to investigate the hidden compartment. He grabs the gun and goes outside to practice shooting it after seeing the money in the satchel. Despite the fact that it takes him a few tries to get his target back inside the house, Curry is hearing shots in his sleep and having nighttime dreams. His house was burned down and his family was murdered while the perpetrator told him to keep his head down. Soon after, Wyatt returns to put the gun back in the closet and takes advantage of the opportunity to open a box. Henry has been hiding there for a long time. Inside, he discovers another gun and a slew of newspaper clippings about various crimes. On the way to town, Henry discovers that Ketchum and his men have been following Betrayal Curry's trail. Stillwell is such an expert tracker that he can tell when someone has walked over Curry's tracks, so the trio now knows their victim is collaborating with someone else. These men hear some noises in the tall grass and shoot, but Henry has already fled before they can find him back on the farm. Wyatt notices that one of the ropes around Curry's hands is a little loose, and that his other hand is covered with a. When WT removes the blanket, he discovers that the rope has vanished. So Curry seizes the opportunity to stop pretending to be asleep and frees himself by grabbing the knife from the nightstand. He leaps onto WT and swears he doesn't want to hurt him. He simply wants his satchel returned. When Henry returns, he kicks Curry off his son before punching him until he loses consciousness again. They then tie Curry to a chair and wake him up. It has been determined that going to town for a doctor is too dangerous. While wriggling and crying in pain, Henry proceeds to extract the bullet from Curry's wound with a heated knife. Curry claims to be a cop and advises Henry and Wyatt to flee before it's too late. The bullet is extracted, but before Henry can ask any questions, Ketchum and his men appear outside. Henry smells when he goes to get Curry's gun. He reloads it before going outside because it has already been shot. Keem introduces himself as a sheriff and his deputies as his deputies, and then explains that they're looking for Curry, a dangerous criminal and a murderer posing as a sheriff. 2. Interested in Henry, Ketra begins questioning him about his personal life. When he hears his name is McCarty, he takes a special interest because there was a criminal with that same last name many years ago. Henry informs them that he has no family, so it cannot be a relative, and that he has not seen anyone who fits Curry's description. So, before leaving, he dismisses the men. Keem reminds them to lock their doors at the end of the night. Then Henry returns to the house and slaps Wyatt for using the gun. Wyatt only wanted to know how it felt because he was the only boy in the area who had never been taught to fire a weapon and had to learn on his own. Wyatt insults Henry and calls him worthless after Henry slaps him again, claiming Henry will be left alone to die because he will leave the farm as soon as he is able, not wanting to remember how much that hurt. Henry goes to question his prisoner. Curry elaborates. He's the real sheriff, and the trio are bank robbers who stole Curry's deputies' badges. He recovered the money after killing them, but was injured in the process, so he passed out and fell from his horse while fleeing, only to wake up here on the farm later. Why didn't you catch up? Curry has no idea who Henry is, but he knows they'll be back. Meanwhile, the catcher and his men deliberate on what to do. They don't believe Henry and are perplexed as to why he is assisting A. Perhaps he was promised a percentage of the proceeds. Duggan is perplexed as to why they didn't shoot him, given that they were 3 against 1 soak. Something strange is going on, he explains. He doesn't believe Henry is in it for the money, and he didn't hold the gun like a farmer. What they need to do first is gather some information so that Duggan can keep an eye on the farm while Catchman is still there. So go get some guns and pay Al A. When night falls, Henry forces Wyatt to go inside before completing his farm chores because it's too dangerous to stay outside. It's getting late. Later, Henry feeds Curry some soup himself, causing Curry to complain about still being chained up in order to test his trustworthiness. Henry questions Curry about his past. Curry tells him about all the people he's worked with and lived with whose names Henry recognizes from his travel. He also apologizes for jumping on. He claimed he was scared and confused when he awoke in a strange place. Henry's face looks familiar, but he denies ever meeting Curry before as he decides to free one of his hands. Then Henry puts his gun down and goes to refill his glass. This is an experiment to see if Curry will grab it, but he does not. Curry, on the other hand, continues to tell Henry's childhood stories, including the time he saw Billy the Kid get. Curry had heard Billy's voice in his dream earlier. Hearing the stories and seeing Curry not reach for the gun is finally enough to make Henry trust him. He releases Curry's other hand, returns his gun, and tells him to leave his house before the criminals return. They don't get to discuss it further, however, because Dugan starts shooting at them through the window. Curry responds with a shot, and Wyatt rushes over to see what's going on, taking a bullet and grazing his arm in the process. His wound was still bothering him. As Dugan sneaks beneath the house, shooting through the floor, Curry passes out, prompting Henry to grab his gun. Every time Henry moves, he hands the gun to his son and gives him some shooting tips before tossing a book on the floor to trick Dugan into shooting in that direction. While running in the opposite direction, Henry goes outside and begins shooting under the house until Dugan runs out and is shot. Henry jumps on him and tries to force him to reveal some information. But because Dugan refuses to speak, Henry kills him to make the body disappear. After noticing a gain mark on Dugan's skin, he feeds it to the PAS. Following that, Henry tends to Wyatt's wound while dodging his son's questions about his past. Wyatt believes his father does not respect him, and Henry cannot expect respect in return. After checking on Curry, who is still daydreaming about the fire, Henry goes outside with his rifle and braces himself for the worst. Al goes bird hunting in the morning, making it easy for Keem and Stillwell to find him. They want to know more about Henry, but Al refuses to answer their questions and is knocked down as soon as he tries to defend himself. Back at the farm, Henry and Wyatt assist Curry in getting ready to leave. Curry, on the other hand, can barely walk. Sophie, get on a horse. He tells them to leave while he finishes what he's working on. Wyatt wants to stay and defend his home as well, but Henry agrees with Curry and prepares his son to leave. Unfortunately, when they get outside, they are met with a nasty surprise. Capture M, and Stillwell is back with a slew of new hires. As Keem offers them a deal, the father and son return inside. If they give him Curry, he'll let them go without a fight. Keem goes a step further and reveals they've captured Al, who is hurt and bleeding furious because Henry refuses to accept it. Henry takes his rifle and hands it to Wyatt, telling him to stay inside and away from the window, and to only shoot if absolutely necessary. Ignoring Curry's delight at being handed over, Henry confronts Keem, who admits he isn't a sheriff and is dying to find out who Henry really is. Keem proposes trading Al for Curry, but Henry declines because neither he nor Al will reveal any secrets. Keem dispatches Al on the spot. This prompts Wyatt to emerge and begin shooting, as the gang retaliates by hitting Curry on the leg when he walks near the window after scolding Wyatt for acting without thinking. Henry drags him back inside, hearing these words that match his dream. Curry finally connects the dots and realizes Henry's true identity is Billy the Kid. He did not perish on the night of the fire. Henry ignores him, instead focusing on retrieving his old gun and holster before heading outside to begin shooting. After only a few words, Henry kills a few gang members with implantable aim before returning to the house through the window, opening a hole large enough for Curry to shoot a few men as well. As the remaining men begin to surround the house, Henry grabs a knife and exits through the back door, sneaking around quietly. He stabs 2 criminals before concealing himself beneath the house to shoot the third. Then he meets Stillwell, who also attempts to use his knife, but Henry kills him before he can take a single step. Only catching him remains. He hides behind Pippin and manages to injure Henry's shoulder, so Henry dashes into the woods to catch him and follow him. As they exchange words, both men hide behind trees, but Henry is too good for him, and he hits him on the leg and shoulder. When Henry gets closer, Keem manages to land one more shot before Henry finishes him off. The wounds aren't serious, so as soon as Henry returns to the farm, he goes to Curry for assistance with his own injuries. When Henry rips Curry's sleeve off to get a better look at his arm, he discovers a shocking surprise. Curry is part of the same gang as Mark Duggan, and he shoots Henry for noticing it. Technically, Curry did not tell the truth. He admits it. He was, in fact, a sheriff, albeit a corrupt one. He and his deputies had previously collaborated with Ketchum. However, they had learned that Ketchum had planned to murder them during their previous job. So Curry tried to flee, and that's how it all began. Curry wants to be the one who killed Billy the Kid, even though Henry is in pain. But Wyatt arrives and kills him before he can fire. First, he wishes to find a doctor for his father, but Henry informs him that it is too late. So he wants to say a few words to his son before he leaves. When Wyatt leaves for he'll hear a lot of Billy the Kid stories. So Henry wants him to understand that only half of them are true. He admits to not being a good person and has never believed in redemption. He's just trying to find solace in raising a good child. Henry doesn't believe he has a place in this new world, but he knows why. Wyatt buries his father beside him after crying over his father's death. When he's emotionally ready, he packs his belongings and rides away from the farm on his horse, as he's always wanted to do. We really appreciate you watching. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notification bell because it is really important for us. Thank you.